Welcome to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I'm your host, Eric Cohen, and last week we broke down our straight-up winners for the college football playoff, but this week it's time for our best bets. So let's get right to it and bring in the experts. I know he's looking forward to this weekend more than just about anybody that we know from. It is the great Mike McClure. And next is the guy that I would hire as my GM if I was a college football head coach, the very savvy football mind, Emory Hunt. Our friend Chip Patterson will join us a bit later on. All right, gentlemen, good to be with you once again. Let's get into storylines and let's talk about home field advantage this weekend. Emory, I'm going to start with you. Which of the four home teams has the biggest home field advantage in the first round?
Full disclaimer and disclosure, I do not believe in home field advantage at all. Because, again, you're speaking to someone that lost, damn near all their games in college. We won 9 games in 4 years. So if you're good on the road, you be good at home. We stunk everywhere. So it didn't matter, right? So, but for the sake of the question, I feel like Penn State would have the better home field advantage because just the atmosphere they have. Now, granted, everybody wishes it was at night, but man, getting this game at noon against SMU, team coming from North Texas, to come up there in the cold weather against a very good Penn State team. Now, I have seen SMU play in cold weather before. In fact, I was at the game where SMU played UConn, where Coach Prime Deion Sanders Jr. was the kick returner at that game, and SMU, did a solid job against UConn. But man, this is a different animal. This is a different level of cold weather. So I feel like for this weekend, Penn State has the better home field advantage.
Yeah, I'll say Penn State on paper as well. You do get the weather impact and just that stadium in general. I think that it's just a different environment than SMU is really kind of used to. I also will say Notre Dame, though, but that is more about the weather. Getting a night game in the cold stylistically matches that Notre Dame program a lot. So I really do think, even though it's an in-state game and there will be some Indiana fans that find their way in, I do think Notre Dame has a really big home field advantage in this particular game.
Now, I would agree with you guys on Penn State if the game was at night. What about Texas? We're not talking about Texas here. I mean, it's a pretty good crowd. You think anyone from Clemson is going to Texas? Clemson fans expect to be in bigger bowl games. They're not traveling to Austin. You're getting 100,000 people. And Emory, come on, home field advantage means something. Give me that. All right, so let's talk about it on the reverse angle. So if you think Penn State has the biggest home field advantage, who has the least home field advantage or the smallest this week? Emory, tell us.
This may sound weird, but follow me here. And it makes sense when I say it and I talk through it. Ohio State lost their home field advantage when they got rid of the track around the field and they got rid of grass. I felt like the stadium was louder and a little bit more raucous when they had natural grass and that track around the field. But since they lost that, it just feels like it's not the same atmosphere. And more seriously and more importantly, because of the tense nature of the Ohio State program right now with Ryan Day and having to win this ball game and having to win a national championship in the first round, based on what they did the last couple of years versus Michigan, the tense nature around this atmosphere doesn't bode well for Ohio State having a true home field advantage. So I will go with Buckeyes here.
I'm right there with you. It's Ohio State by a wide margin. I would call it the home field disadvantage because if they don't score on that opening drive, you're going to hear the collective groan from that stadium. And if things don't go well in the first half of this game, it's not going to be pretty. We really need to see how Will Howard's going to bounce back and just Ryan Day in general coming off that loss to Michigan. Now they're in this spot with a very tough road. This is a tough matchup against Tennessee. They know they got a tough one on deck with Oregon, really all because they lost that game. So I think that this is a spot where if they don't have success early, it does become a disadvantage for Ohio State to be at home in this matchup.
Now, Mike, I can side with you there. Emory, I don't know about the track and the whole. It's interesting. I never thought about it. I'm going to have to do my research, but you're getting us to think, and that we appreciate. All right, so BetMGM put out some championship exactas. I like parlays. You know how I feel about that. So which championship exacta is the best value in your opinion? Emory, start with you.
I would say Notre Dame versus Oregon over Oregon for the national title. That to me seems like the best bet. I like Oregon as the best team overall in college football. They've beaten everybody. and they can play any type of game you want to play. Their defense is active and aggressive. They can get after the quarterback. On offense, they can beat you with their run game if they have to. We've seen them throw their way to victory as well. Got a great quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, maybe the most complete team right now in this postseason. And Notre Dame, since Northern Illinois' loss, this team has been on a tear both defensively and on offense, with Riley Leonard showing improvement in the passing game and being more of an asset than a liability in that regard. So when you combine all of those factors, along with the fact that we've seen them beat a Texas A&M team that had given some teams some problems, since that loss, I kind of like Notre Dame to go to the national championship game and, because of their physical style, beat Oregon.
I like Notre Dame over Texas. Very similar. It's the exact same price point here. The thing that I like on Notre Dame is just the path, right? You get the home game against Indiana, and then the next round matchup against Georgia is a true wild card, in my opinion, because of the quarterback situation and all the time off. As far as Texas, I like to still make this comparison to the NFL. The Texas Longhorns are the Kansas City Chiefs right now. We know they're a good football team. We don't know if they're great, but they've got a path here, and they've got a knack for just finding a way to win these games at the end. And that's what I think here. I think they drew a very nice path. So I'm going to go Notre Dame over Texas. I would set the line as Texas is a 2-point favorite in that title game. Notre Dame wins it as a slight underdog.
Now, I like Notre Dame in the championship game. I agree with everything that you guys said, but hold on a second. Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since 1988. There's some kind of jinx. Yeah, maybe jinxes are meant to be broken. I'm not picking Notre Dame to win, but I think they can get there. They're on the easier side of the draw. But how about Ohio State over Notre Dame at 30-1? Who's the most talented team in college football on paper? Probably Ohio State, right? Now, Ryan Day, if he's ever going to keep his job, probably has to win a national title or at least get there. He's not losing to Notre Dame. So in terms of best value, though this isn't my pick, Ohio State over Notre Dame at 30-1 is the best value in my opinion. All right, let's talk about betting philosophy for non-college football playoff bowl games. We saw one last night, Memphis and West Virginia, and it was a thriller. So what's your philosophy? We'll start with you, Mike. Do you bet early and find value, or do you wait until you know which players are in and out?
I would generally wait. There's always an exception to every rule here, EC. If you are close to a program or have some sort of real insight on as far as what you think regarding coaching change even, or opt-outs, things like that. But generally speaking, I think you're better off waiting. And then if you don't get the number you exactly want, look to some of those derivative markets, look for first halves, first quarters, things like that, to find better key numbers. But for me, it's waiting to get some of that information for sure.
Definitely got to wait, man. I made this point emphatically on CBS Sports HQ last night, which you guys should be a subscriber of. Listen, I will just bet straight up who I think will win the game. Moneyline bets, sometimes you may have tremendous value. Sometimes you may have to parlay that with another game just to pick the straight up winner, because these are the true unknown nowadays with the opt-outs. That was the first voyage into the frontier that we are in now. But now you have opt-outs, you have guys that are just straight transferring, teams dropping out of bowl games because there's half their team is in the transfer portal. So now you really don't know unless you get a coach prime to come out there and say, hey, my guys are playing. Okay, cool. I feel confident placing a wager on that game this far out. But in terms of like last night, I just said, hey, take Memphis to win the ball game. And just from any game moving forward, especially ones that are coming up on us rapidly, like these everyday bowl games, just take who you think will win the game, wait to see who's starting out there, and just take the better team to win straight up on the money line.
And I think that's great advice. And my last tidbit that I would throw in, the alt line is your friend in bowl games. You don't know, there's a lot of different factors, which players are in, which are out. Look at alt lines. If you want to do same game parlays and buy lines, a touchdown or so, kind of I don't want to say a teaser of sorts, probably not a bad idea based on what these guys just said. All right. If you are not a SportsLine subscriber, what are you doing? It's time to sign up with us and hang out with us in our new Discord that is launched. M Squared's in there giving chats multiple times, I believe. So good that he's a part of it. But use promo code WINNERS for 60% off an annual plan. It's the best deal we have that is advertised better than anything we have on the site. So check out sportsline.com for best bets and model picks and the Discord. Coming up next, Penn State fans are upset they didn't get a night game for their whiteout on Saturday. Will it make a difference against a pesky SMU team? We'll give our college football playoff first round best bets here on the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. Welcome back to the Early Edge, and it's the first game in the history of the expanded college football playoff, the Battle of Indiana, and can the Hoosiers actually compete against a good team? Let's welcome in our friend live from North Carolina, where he might get to watch a college football playoff home game in due time, Chip Patterson. All right, let's start. Notre Dame, 7.5-point favorite against Indiana, the total 51.5 for Friday night. Mike mentioned in the first segment that there may be snow. All right, Mike. Give us your pick on this game. I think I know where you lean because of the weather, but tell us.
Yeah, I like Notre Dame here. I just love what they're able to do, not only on defense, but offense, the ground game. I don't think anyone's going to stop the rushing attack, and it's three of them, right? It's not just Jeremiah Love. It's all of them. I think Price, I think Riley Leonard, they're all going to have success on the ground here. If we get the snow, we're already going to get the cold, but if we get the snow, I think it just really magnifies that edge that Notre Dame has. And I think we get into these situations, guys, where we look at Notre Dame and we look at who they end up playing, and we look at years past and like, same Notre Dame team, they're good, not great. I think this year's version is different. I think this team is great on both sides of the ball, and I think it's because Riley Leonard has really stepped up and matured throughout the course of the season. I think they're in a great spot at home here. I think they win this by double digits.
Yeah, I think they win by double digits. I think they can win by 10 because I expect this game to be a little bit closer than people think, but enough to where Notre Dame can still cover because of what Mike talked about, their run game. And it's funny because Notre Dame is one of those schools where if you told me Joe Alt was still out there or our colleague Aaron Taylor was still out there, I believe, because they always look the same up front along the offensive line. That's consistency. They're talented up there. They move guys off the line of scrimmage. Indiana, being in Indiana, is used to playing in this weather. This is a great game, a great matchup. I think they'll be highly competitive, more so than what they were against Ohio State. But at the end, Notre Dame is just overly a little bit more balanced than them, and I'd like them to win this game, especially because of their defense.
Should I be singing the Chip song of UNITY, UNIT? No, we don't do that. At least I don't. All right, here we go. We'll save that for later in the show. All right, Notre Dame minus 7.5 to play here. Their defense, 28 takeaways, third best scoring defense in the country. The offense has scored 28 or more in 10 straight games, and they've won by double digits in 10 games this season. I can go on and on. The fact is, who's Indiana played? One good team, in my opinion, Ohio State, and they got blown out. Notre Dame 7-1 against both teams, 4-0 against ranked teams. They win comfortably. Notre Dame 34, Indiana 17. So wait a second. Mike, Emory, and I agree. Chip, welcome to the show. Do we have Chip Island here?
Flicking that cig right in your faces because I am trusting the coaching of Curt Cignetti. I am trusting the way that the Hoosiers are going to be prepared because I'll tell you what, all this talk about who played what and what did your schedule look like, Notre Dame has not had to face a passing attack quite like what they're going to get with Indiana. I think Curtis Rourke is going to be one of the best quarterbacks they have faced. And when they went up against some of the better passing attacks this season, and I would definitely circle USC for that, we saw USC have some success. And so Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, I think Curtis Rourke's going to be able to pick apart the back half of this Notre Dame defense. All they got to do is get a little bit of blocking up front. And that is one thing that I think really let them down. The flaw for the Indiana Hoosiers has been how they play on early downs against elite teams. The game against Ohio State, the win against Michigan, they put themselves in too many third and long scenarios. If they do a better job on first and second down in this game, Indiana won't just cover, which is my prediction. Indiana will have a shot to win this game. And finally, the other thing that I'm looking at here is going to be a game where I think that both of these teams are going to be able to have some success offensively. I think it's going to be a little bit of a, trading blows, haymakers, heavyweight type fight. And when that's the game script that I'm expecting, I love being able to get 7 and a hook. So give me the Hoosiers plus the 7.5. I think we are in for an absolute thriller on Friday night.
All right, fair enough. Chip Island reigns supreme, maybe. All right, let's go on to Saturday at noon. SMU, the 11th seed, takes on Penn State, the number 6. Penn State giving 8.5 points, and the total is kind of high at 54.5. Emory, start us off.
Now, listen, I know we talk about the weather, and Penn State is a different animal than North Texas cold. It does get cold in North Texas. We've seen snow at the old Texas Stadium. The Leon Lett game comes to mind. So we know it gets cold, but this is a different level. And we have a lot of speed across the board offensively like SMU has. It's tough to open up that stride and get those hamstrings going in weather like they're going to face in terms of temperature out there at Penn State. Plus, they're facing a very good defense that can apply pressure. I think what we'll see from Penn State is the run game, basically the offensive line, their defensive line, start to lean on SMU and force them to play clean football for a full 60-minute game. I think that's where Penn State can steal away a few possessions. So I will lay these points with the Nittany Lions.
I'm laying the points as well. I think we get a late cover from Penn State in this one. And I think it looks a little bit like we just watched SMU against Clemson. The only difference is it's going to be a lot colder. There's definitely going to be a big home field advantage. And Penn State's a much better team defensively than Clemson is. And you could argue offensively as well because they've got the consistent ground game. But when you watch what Cade Klubnik was able to do, I think Drew Aller's going to have that same success. And it's because of that ground game from Penn State. So while this thing could be close for, 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters, I ultimately trust Penn State's defense to get the stop, and Penn State's offense is going to keep scoring, as evident by how they were able to put up points on Oregon despite falling behind in that game. I like this spot a lot for Penn State.
All right, EC, I'll show you how to do it since you asked. UNITY, UNITY, 1, 2, 3. And I'll tell you what, I might go alt line. Like if you're to take all 4 of these first round games and you're going to say, okay, pick out where you're going to get the upset, pick out where you're going to be the blowout, and you're assigning all these different roles to your expectations, this is the game where I think you have the highest probability of the favorite running away with it. I think that if SMU falls behind like it did against Clemson, they are not going to be able to get enough to come roaring back into this game. And I think that Penn State, it is imperative that they get off to a hot start to be able to really light a fire underneath that crowd in Happy Valley. I just don't think Penn State has a lot of flaws. They've got areas where they could be better, like non-Tyler Warren receiving options, but not a lot of places that I would consider a weakness. Give me Penn State to win this one by double digits.
All right. You know what that means. All 3 of you on one side. EC Island is back, and it's 6-1 against the spread this season. We're going to take a shot. I'm going SMU plus 8.5. Mike gave kind of my logic. This feels like a backdoor cover type of game on either side, but similar to the ACC championship game where the Mustangs comeback came out of nowhere, I think they can do it again. But here's the stat that swayed me. Penn State in their last 6 games against ranked teams, 0-6 against the spread. James Franklin's not covering against good teams. He knows how to blow out bad teams. SMU is a good team, obviously. I think this one's going to get close at the end. Penn State 27, SMU 23. All right, let's see that island graphic. We have Chip Island. We have EC Island. Oh, look at that. Chip is on Indiana, I'm on SMU, and Mike and Emory are just chilling on the boat in between. Hey, you gotta love that. We enjoy going against each other, especially when Chip sings the UNITY song. All right, coming up next, it's Ohio State, it's Tennessee. What's gonna happen if Ohio State falls behind at home against the Volunteers? Will the horseshoe turn against Ryan Day? Or can the college football playoff be Day's redemption story? Buckeyes or Vols? Find out what our experts think next on The Early Edge. Back on The Early Edge, and the pressure is squarely on Texas in this first matchup. The Longhorns lost twice to the only elite team they played this season, Georgia. So I get why there are plenty of doubters, including on this panel. All right, they're giving 11.5 to Clemson on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern with a total of 51.5. I don't think this is an island spot, but Emory, you're pretty compelled on one side here. Which way do you lean?
I'm 1-0 right now in terms of using this analogy to, spur quarterback change. I did it with the Falcons, and I'm going to do it right here with Texas. This is another situation that reminds me of Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, where you're winning games with Alex Smith. You feel like Kaepernick can get you a little bit further in the postseason. I think this is a situation where you're winning games with Quinn Ewers, and Arch Manning can give you a little bit more so in the postseason. The athleticism, the ability to open up the offense because now you make it an 11-on-11 game. The fear of the unknown on the other side of the football from a defensive perspective. You don't really know what you're going to face in Arch Manning other than his athleticism, so which makes you probably undersell his ability to throw the football. This is the ultimate curveball that should happen for Texas. But I'm saying all to say this. Based on what we saw last against Georgia, I can't see how Texas is a 11.5 point favorite against a Clemson team that's been in playoff mode the last month. Cade Klubnik has been outstanding, looking like Arch Manning, running the football and take it off when he needs to and being the guy to put the team on his back. I think Clemson is a live dog here to win this game outright. So I'm definitely taking them plus 11.5 points.
All right, I'm going to make this a little bit of a math equation because Texas is a team that I've said here with you all and many other places, they are better on paper than they are in performance and production. So let's put some numbers behind it. Texas is 8th nationally in terms of red zone opportunities. The number of times they move the ball and they get it inside the 20, top 10. But you know where they rank in terms of converting those into points? 93rd nationally. So that big old gap between being the 8th best team at getting to the red zone and the 93rd best team at being able to actually score, I mean, not just touchdowns, but actually score, is where Texas falls short of expectations. It's where Texas sometimes doesn't get burned at all. So let's go back to Red River, Oklahoma. They win that game by what? It was like 34-3, something like that. They had 6 red zone opportunities. They only got 2 touchdowns, also settled for 2 field goals. But here's where it burned you. It was in Atlanta when you had 3 red zone opportunities and you only walked away with 2 field goals. When your high end is 21 points and you're walking away with 6 points, that gap is how you don't win games. And in this one, how you don't cover a spread. Red zone failures.
You know, I think we're going to get a competitive game here. I think Texas wins it. I'm going to go under on Clemson's team total 20.5. And I think that there's a scenario that they can score 20 and win this game. If I'm Dabo probably doesn't want to be in another shootout where they're having to score 35 plus points to win here. When I look at Texas, they're great defensively. So we've seen from Dabo in the past in situations like this, he's going to be very content to run the football, punt the football, play defense, get this game to the fourth quarter in a 1-score game. And you talk about Texas, the struggles in the red zone. You know what happens when you're not immediately scoring in the red zone? The clock is moving. I think both teams run the football in this one. I think both teams have the mindset of we don't mind the punt. We don't mind putting our defense on the field and playing that field position game. So I'm going to go under on the team total here for Clemson because I think there is still a scenario that if Texas plays well, they just get absolutely blown out in this game and can't score. But again, I think there's also the scenario here that they could easily cover and score 17 to 20 points.
Great pick there, Mike. I'm going under. I think here's the thing. Texas's defense has only given up 17 or more, has only given up more than 17 points 3 times this season, twice to Georgia, including once in overtime. That defense is real and it's legit. But somebody on one of our videos last week pointed out Texas. They said, well, how do they do with multiple weeks to prepare? So I looked it up. This season, when Steve Sarkisian has multiple weeks to prepare, they've scored 52, 34, and 49 points. I'm just saying that's a thing. And oh, by the way, double-digit favorites are 8-0 in college football playoff history, with only one team having won by less than 17 points. Texas is 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 as a double-digit home favorite against ranked teams. Say that 5 times fast. They are going to blow out Clemson. Texas 30, Clemson 13. So I'm on the other side as some of you. I guess not an island spot. Kind of a fun one. All right, let's talk about the one. We're going to call this Ryan Day's last stand. Number 9, Tennessee against number 8, Ohio State. The Buckeyes are 7.5-point favorites. The total is 46.5. That line seems a little high to me. Chip, I have a feeling. Are you thinking the money line here?
Yeah, absolutely. But no science, no football. Ohio State's the better team. Ohio State is the better team by like a large swath, like tiers even. If this was played in a vacuum, If this was played in a simulation, Ohio State wins this game often and maybe in dominant fashion. But that ain't college football. That ain't what we're going to have in a game where they're just gripping it so tight. Now, do I think they're going to involve Jeremiah Smith more than they did when they were idiotic in not putting the ball in their best players' hands in the loss to Michigan and being so stubborn, trying to run the football into a defensive line that was one of the best they faced? I don't think they're going to do that. But I think what Tennessee has is a team that can travel, because while Josh Heupel is there and while Nico Iamaleava will be in the NFL one day chucking it around the yard, this is a team that relies on its ground game with Dylan Sampson and on a defensive line that can really get after the passer and stuff the run. And Ohio State's weakness is its offensive line, a group that has dealt with injuries all season and led to failures in third and short situations and really let them down in the loss to Michigan. So if Tennessee can show up in this frigid Columbus weather on Saturday night and play good, solid defense and run the football, now all of a sudden you get that creeping doubt. Now you end up getting maybe that home field disadvantage. So again, all of the science, all of the numbers, the stat profiles and everything, Ohio State is the better team, but the human element has me looking at the Vols to be able to hang around and pull off the upset.
It's a game where everyone is focusing on the wrong thing. You hear all week long, Tennessee fans talking about it gets cold in Knoxville, so they're worried about the weather. People are talking about the weather. And on the offensive side of the ball, in terms of the game itself, remember how the fun and gun with Steve Spurrier in Florida, you had Jack Jackson and Chris Doran and Ike Hilliard, Jaquez Green. You also had Riddell Anthony, Danny Warfel. That was the fun part. The gun was Elijah Williams and Fred Taylor running up your throat, down your throat, around your throat, all in your face, all throughout the game. And Chip's point is perfect. This is about Tennessee's run game, because everyone will focus on, oh man, Josh Heupel, they're spreading the field. They got all the receivers out to the boundary. Man, they are running down your throat. I think a lot of people are not giving Tennessee enough credit for how they run the football with Dylan Sampson and how committed Josh Heupel, former quarterback, just like Steve Spurrier, is to running the football. This game will be a lot closer than people think. I also feel like this game could also end up, in Chip's point of view, where Tennessee could win this one. So I'm definitely taking the Vols plus the points here.
I'm optimistic on the Vols as well. I'm going to take their team total, though, and it's mostly around a key number. I'm going over 19.5. I just think there are so many scenarios that land with this team at 20, 21, 24, or 27, where they could win the game outright or still not even cover the spread. So when I look at this matchup here and what they want to do, they're going to play with tempo. Yes, they want to run the football, but they're going to play with tempo. And I think that the do-or-die nature of this game actually leads to Nico running himself a little bit more here to extend those drives. And I think that that is one part of his game that is really underrated. But with all the additional time off here to prepare for this and let his body heal, he was playing a little banged up towards the end of the season. I think he's going to be in a great spot here. And let's not discount the fact that Will Howard could definitely turn this football over against this Tennessee pass rush here, creating a short field. For me, this is a number that was literally their first half team total for about half of the season. I get that it's a major step up in class, but to me, I think that there are many paths. Win, don't win, cover, don't cover, where 20 points is on the board here.
So my favorite play in this game is the under 46.5. And I'm not saying, I'm not giving a pick necessarily on a side. I'll give a score prediction, but Ohio State was under this number in 7 of 9 games against Big Ten teams. Tennessee was under this number in 5 of 8 SEC games. OSU has the best scoring defense in the country, under 11 points per game. Tennessee's 4th at under 14 points a game. Tennessee not nearly as good on the road as they are at home as far as scoring. 44 points at home, 23 on the road. I just have a hard time seeing fireworks against these top defenses. I think the Buckeyes win. I wouldn't touch this 7.5 number. Ohio State 20, Tennessee 13. I think it goes way under in that cold weather. Now we'll see. I mean, Mike could build a bigger boat if he's on the opposite side of me on this one. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, we've gone through the first 4 college football playoff first round games, and now it's time to see our bowl game best bets coming up next on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge. Mike and Emory are only separated by one game in our best bet standings. Look at this on the year. Collectively, I think something like 66-46. If you are following us in this segment, you are making money. So well done. All right, now it's time. We're going to have an expanded segment here. We want to give our best bet as far as what do you like the best of those four games. Emory, we'll start with you. What's your best college football playoff bet?
I already laid out the elite level analysis and analogies for my Clemson plus 11.5. So I will stick with that. That's the best play here because it's a double-digit spread in the playoff game, and Dabo has the experience too to play well in these games. So I like him plus 11.5.
I'm going to go with Penn State minus the 8.5. I identified it earlier as the one game where I think we've got the potential of a blowout. SMU's run defense has a great statistical profile, but to really dig in against the running games that they have faced is to show not the same caliber of offensive line and definitely not the same caliber of running threats. Of course, I say running threats because that includes not just Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, but also Tyler Warren and maybe some Drew Aller too, just no Bo Pribula. But I just think that SMU's defense is going to have some trouble. I think that the Nittany Lions hold, serve, control this game, win it by double digits.
Love the analysis, Chip. I think the Notre Dame game could go the exact same way, though. I went -7, -115. You can find that in the market here. We'll go all the way up to -125 if you need to on a 7. It's the ground game. And when you look at the weather situation here, I think it could impact what Indiana wants to do, which is throw the football if we get snow in the cold here. But it's the three-headed running game. Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Riley Leonard, who I expect to run more and more as these games become so important, obviously, in must-win games. When you only need 3 or 4 yards, Riley Leonard is the guy that can go pick up those 3 or 4 yards, keep the chains moving. Give me Notre Dame here by double digits. I'll lay the 7.
And my best bet is the under in Ohio State, Tennessee. Of all the outcomes that I see in this game, a shootout is not one of them. With that said, if you want to buy a couple points and get it to that key number of 48.5, so you can get a 28-20, so that way Mike's play can hit, and it goes that the number 46.5 I like, but if you want to buy it up a couple points, I wouldn't argue with that. And of course, as Emory mentioned earlier in the show, if you want to throw it in a parlay, that also is my favorite word in the English language. I will never advise against that. Personally, Mike may disagree with me. All right, round 2 of bowl best bets. These are non-college football playoff. Emory, what do you got?
Ole Miss taking on Duke. Duke was one of the first ones that was highly active in that transfer portal. Gone is Malik Murphy. In comes Mensah from Tulane, but he won't play in this ball game. Ole Miss has their full-fledged guys going to be out there. At least Jackson Dart will lay these points. There's 14.5 with Ole Miss.
I'm right there with you, Emory. I elected to shorten the game. I'm just going Ole Miss first quarter here, -4.5. A bet that I've liked with them often. They just come out of the locker room, guns blazing, and that's what I see here. You got Jackson Dart on the farewell game. It matters a lot to him. It's great that he's playing in it. I think that Duke's got a mess going on over there. So give me Ole Miss here. I'm surprised that it's not more than this. I could see them winning this first quarter by 10+ points. Give me Ole Miss -4.5.
Oh, it's so hard to handicap a bowl game in the modern era. You got transfer portal this, you got opt-out that, and we need some things that we can count on in this world, like Greg Schiano in a bowl game. Greg Schiano is 6-2 in bowl games straight up. That includes wins as an underdog as recently as last season when they took down the Miami Hurricanes as an underdog. We've got a Kansas State team that kind of wishes it had gotten to play for the Big 12 title, like the thoughts you had all going through the year, kind of wishes you'd been in the mix for the college football playoff, like we might have thought coming into the year, going up against a Rutgers team that even if it doesn't have Kyle Monungai, the ground game is still going to be able to be productive here in this spot. I'm going to take Rutgers plus the 6.5 against Kansas State in what used to be the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, but can no longer be guaranteed anymore. Now it's just the Rate Bowl.
I have been to too many of those Rate Bowl, whatever they were, the Cheez-It Bowl, whatever. Nonetheless, you're doing Mike dirty there, Chip. Come on now. That's his Kansas State team. All right, I actually agree with your pick. I like it. I'm going Ohio -3.5 against Jacksonville State in the Cure Bowl. So both teams being coached by offensive coordinators with their coaches off to other jobs. But Ohio has won and covered in 6 straight and has no players in the transfer portal. They've also won 5 straight bowl games. And during the 6-game winning streak, they're averaging 38 points per game. Ohio 35, Jacksonville State 20, blowout city this Friday morning. Excuse me. All right, Chip, go ahead.
Yeah. So breaking news here as of this morning, which only makes your pick more of a lock and might have me grabbing my phone at this commercial break. Interim tag removed. We are promoting internally at Ohio. The reason why you don't have as many players in the portal is because we're not having a big time shakeup. Very different interim situation than what you have at Jack State. Sometimes a bowl game is game number 13 or 14 of the previous year. Sometimes it's game number 1 of the next year. I like the vibes with the Bobcats, keeping it in the family, keeping the players on the roster, coming off that Big Mac title win.
Who's with me on the Ohio Notre Dame parlay on Friday? That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's go to round 2 of bowl bets. What do you got for us, Emory?
Syracuse, love how the coach came out. Fran Brown was like, hey, if there's a football game, Kyle McClure will play. I hate that John Mateer is leaving Wazoo because I like when guys be where their feet are and help build the program and make it something. And I just remember back in the day, matter of fact, my freshman year in college, there were only 25 bowl games. Now we have 40 plus bowl games. Insane. So I like Syracuse to lay these points against Washington State because, again, Kyle McCord and that offense will play. Farewell to Kyle McCord. And I also like the fact that the Orange are playing really good football at this juncture.
I'm going to take you to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, where Boise always makes for a scenic setting for a little afternoon bowl action. This will be Monday afternoon for those of you keeping track. So whether you're already out of work or whether you're faking work, throw this game on and get ready to sweat. Because we are going to go with the Northern Illinois Fresno State first half under 20.5. We got quarterbacks hitting the portal. We got offensive linemen hitting the portal. We are just going to run the football, sweat enough to keep us warm in Boise, and get to the locker room to go warm up. So I think this is low scoring. I like the full game under as well. But my best bet with all the pieces that are gone for both offenses is just to go with that first half under 20.5.
By the way, Emory, for your pick, will Washington State have anyone left to coach that team if Jake Dickert is off to Wake Forest, as has been rumored as before we're taping this show? My second pick is for not. Yeah, it is official. There you go. Yep. So, I mean, great move for Wake Forest, but who's going to coach Washington State? We'll see if that game actually happens. Community team, I like it. I'm going with the Hawaii Bowl on Christmas Eve. We need something to watch on Christmas Eve. That's San Jose State, South Florida, over 60.5. It is Ken Niumatalolo's Hawaii homecoming, a high school and college legend there. And it's San Jose State's 4th-ranked passing offense against South Florida's dreadful pass defense. San Jose State has one of the best receivers in the country. Probably should have won the Blitnikoff Award, even though I would have gone for my guy, Teteroa McMillan. Neither of them won it. Obviously, Travis Hunter did. But Nick Nash had a touchdown in 11 of 12 games this season. But USF's no slouch either. They averaged 39 points a game in their last 6. This one is going to light up the scoreboard. San Jose State 40, South Florida 31, the over 60.5. All right, let's recap them here. Chip is on Penn State minus 8.5. Rutgers plus 6.5, and the under in the first half of the Potato Bowl, the Idaho Potato Bowl, Northern Illinois and Fresno State under 20.5. Emory is on Clemson plus 11.5, Ole Miss minus 14.5, and Syracuse giving 11.5. Mike is on Notre Dame minus 7, and Ole Miss in the first quarter at minus 4.5. And I am on the Tennessee Ohio State under 46.5, Ohio minus 3.5 in the Cure Bowl, and South Florida San Jose State over 60.5 in the Hawaii Bowl. That should be a shootout. But we've given our best bets, but which bowl game favorites are on upset alert? Find out next on The Early Edge. Welcome back to The Early Edge, and it is time for our Dogs of the Week. Now, remember the last time we did this segment, Emory gave out a plus 800 with Georgia Tech over Georgia, and it should have hit if not for the officiating. I mean, that was a brilliant pick. Emory, you have crushed it in this segment this year. You're up nearly 10 units. So very well done on that. But Mike, you're going to go a little different route this week, not necessarily an underdog, but a value play. What do you have for us?
Yeah, build your own underdog here, EC. We're going to build this line to plus 152, and I'm taking an alt line on Notre Dame. I'm going to back them minus 13.5 here, plus 152. I think they pull away late against Indiana because I think the weather is going to play a big factor here. I think that Notre Dame's going to have a ton of success running the football. I think Indiana's going to struggle to throw the football, and I just think this is a spot where we could see a double-digit victory, one where Notre Dame just simply runs away with this football game. Give me the alt spread here, minus 13.5, plus 152.
All right, so Emory, after we've made all this money from betting the CFP and we wait till after New Year's, you have a pick in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, which is the greatest post-game celebration in college football. Who you got?
I like Virginia Tech over Minnesota. I think this will boil down to the better quarterback. And Kyron Jones has said, hey, I'm coming back. And I think that gives an added boost to Virginia Tech. I think they're excited, Hokie Land, to kick off 2025. So I'd like them to go ahead and upset Minnesota in this ball game. So I'm going to take them at plus money in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I would rather not see the coach get dunked in mayo, but I'd rather see a mayo pie in the face, though.
Ooh, mayo pie in the face. Charlotte Sports Foundation, get on the phone with my guy. I'm telling you, he's got ideas. All right. So I'm going to be taking a look at one of the superstars in the sport from this past weekend. I am not talking about the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm talking about the Navy midshipmen, because they showed up more ready to play than Army. They did a better job of taking care of the football. And when they were tested, boy, that defense responded with the game-changing plays they needed to hold off that Army comeback. I think this Navy team really felt sour about the way that the season ended, with the loss to Notre Dame, followed by the loss to Rice. I mean, you can't lose to food. And so with a better finish to the season, I think that they bring in a level of competitiveness that, honestly, I wonder if Oklahoma is going to be able to match. Now, Oklahoma is not Baylor, but I remember an Air Force Baylor Armed Forces Bowl. You can tell when a service academy team is playing a non-service academy team, and the non-service academy teams from a power conference, and they don't want to be there. That life looks awful. I think Navy's going to have them boys in a bad spot, and I like Navy at 2-1 to win this game.
I'm going to go to the Game Above Sports Bowl. I don't even know what that sponsors, but okay, let's go with it. Toledo plus 220 against Pittsburgh. So what's the status of Pitt quarterback Eli Holstein? If he's out with a leg injury, they're down to their third straight quarterback because the backup's in the transfer portal. Pittsburgh started 7-0 and has lost 5 straight. It's not that Toledo's anything special, but this is a presumptive bet on Holstein's health. I know he's rumored that he may play, but at plus 220, I'm going to take the bait with Toledo in the Game Above Sports Bowl. All right, Emory, give us a pick in the FCS semifinals. Who is going to meet in the championship game?
I think we have a Montana State versus North Dakota State matchup. I like the Bobcats to be the victor over South Dakota, and North Dakota State to win 2 in a row against South Dakota State.
And I'm sure we will preview that championship game on another episode of this show, but it should be compelling on Saturday with all of the games. Well, guys, I want to wish all of you and those watching and listening a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Another awesome show on the College Football Pick Show. So for Chip Patterson, Emory Hunt, and Mike McClure, I am Eric Cohen. Thanks for watching the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. And as I always like to say, let's hit it big. Good luck.